This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gido-Yuat. It's Monday, November 25th. This is Africa 54. A plane crash in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo kills more than 24 people. Voters in Guinea Bissau await the official results of Sunday's presidential election. The poll comes after weeks of political unrest. And sports stars in Cameroon take a stand against anti-gay laws. We begin our broadcast this evening with Sunday's tragic plane crash into a heavily populated area in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Monday's death toll has risen to more than 24. Emma McCarthy has more on the deadly accident.
At least 27 people have been killed after a plane crashed in a densely populated neighbourhood in Goma, in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, on Sunday. Some of those killed were on the ground after being hit with falling debris, according to a rescue official. Officials say the propeller plane, operated by the local company Beni, crashed shortly after takeoff en route to the city of Beni. Air accidents are relatively frequent in Congo because of lax safety standards and poor maintenance. All Congolese commercial carriers, including Beni, are banned from operating in the European Union.
That was Emma McCarthy of Reuters reporting. Now, protesters in the eastern DRC city of Beni set the town hall on fire Monday after suspected Islamist rebels killed 8 people in an overnight raid. The police force tweeted a photo of Beni mayor's office with flames shooting from the window and thick black smoke billowing above. Rebels believed to belong to the Allied Democratic Forces have killed more than 70 civilians in massacres since the Congolese army launched an offensive against them earlier this month. Violence by ADF and other militia groups near Congo's borders with Uganda and Rwanda often target civilians and have hampered efforts to eradicate a more than a year-long Ebola outbreak. Voters in West African nation of Guinea Bissau are awaiting the official results from Sunday's presidential election. Many are hoping for change in the coup-prone nation amid violent protests and a deadlocked parliament. David Doyle has more.
After weeks of political chaos, including violent protests, an alleged coup attempt and a deadlocked parliament, voters cast their ballots in Guinea-Bissau's presidential election on Sunday, hoping to restore a semblance of calm. President José Mario Vaz is seeking re-election for a second term and remains popular among cashew nut farmers after raising prices for the tiny West African country's biggest export earner. But he also faces tough competition from former Prime Minister Domingos Simoes Pereira, a modernizer whose promises to bolster health and education have made him popular with younger voters in the capital Bissau. That's after Vaz's 5-year term was marred by political infighting, regular high-level sackings and corruption. In late October, Vaz fired Prime Minister Aristides Gomes and appointed a successor. But Gomes refused to step down, and for around 10 days the country had 2 prime ministers, until Vaz backed down amid international pressure. Also in late October, Gomes accused presidential candidate Umaro Sissoko Mbalo of planning a coup. He denied the charge. And in early November, one protester was killed in a violent anti-government demonstration. Whoever wins the election will inherit difficulties, including a muddied outlook for the economy amid the political instability. Corruption and drugs also remain a problem. As well as a draw for adventurous tourists, the nation's scattered islands, mangrove mazes and unpoliced waters have made it a paradise for cocaine traffickers en route from South America to Europe. But whatever the outcome, the vote also represents a historic milestone. In a country which has suffered 9 coups or attempted coups since independence from Portugal in 1974, Vaz is set to become the first democratically elected president to complete a full term.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Now, across the continent in northwestern Kenya, the death toll from powerful landslides triggered by unusually heavy rains has climbed to at least 56 people, according to local officials. Mudslides have claimed the lives of 29 people in the villages of Takmal, Parua and Tapach, while others were killed between the towns of Kitale and Lodwar when their car was swept away after 2 rivers burst their banks, according to West Pokot County Commissioner Apollo Okello. Emergency personnel have recovered 12 bodies, 7 were children. Ongoing rescue and recovery efforts are being severely hampered because many roads have been transformed into rivers and bridges have been washed away. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta says he has dispatched emergency officials from various government agencies to prevent further loss of lives. During the horrific Rwandan genocide in 1994, some 800,000 people, mainly ethnic Tutsis, died at the hands of ethnic Hutus. The extreme violence occurred across the Central African country, although less so in one remote northern town. VOA's Edward Rema explains.
Before the Rwandan genocide, the town of Giti, according to its mayor at the time, was special.
What made Giti unique at the time is the way we lived in harmony, regardless of our ethnicity. We used to give each other gifts of cows, and we intermarried. There was no division among us.
Edward Sebushumba was the mayor of Giti, a small lakeside community in northern Rwanda, when the 100-day killing spree broke out in April 1994. Radio announcements called for avenging the death of President Juvenal Habyarimana, an ethnic Hutu whose plane was shot down that April 6. They urged hunting down and killing ethnic Tutsis. Sebushumba, a Hutu, instead vowed to protect them. He was able to do so at least for the first 2 weeks before Tutsi defenders arrived to help.
None of our community leaders slept. We would do night patrols to ensure that nobody was hurt and nobody tried to start violence.
Sebushumba, now 69, was determined to protect the thousands of Tutsis in Giti, he said of the violence.
In most cases, they do it because the leadership supported those acts of evil. We took a stand and made sure our people understood that we did not support the killings.
Townspeople had to fend off attackers from neighboring communities, including militias who tried to cross Lake Muhazi to come and kill.
I ordered our residents to camp near the lake to make sure they didn't cross over. We used stones and other traditional weapons to overpower them.
Only Tutsis fleeing other communities were allowed into Giti. Sebushumba asked boat owners to bring them across the lake to safety. Alphonse Nizeimana, then an 18-year-old Hutu, operated a boat.
I personally saved close to 30 people. We would do rescues at night to avoid being seen by attackers.
But the town did not escape violence. Naftal Ahishakie, Executive Secretary of Ibuka, the Association of Genocide Survivors, told the Voice of America he cannot categorically state there was no genocide in Giti. However, the level of involvement by Giti residents was very low compared to the rest of the country. Sebushumba acknowledges some deaths.
There were no people killed under my watch in Giti. However, we lost some Giti natives who lived in other parts of the country. Many were killed because they came from Giti.
There have been questions about whether the mayor's role was mythologized as part of the government's push for reconciliation. Emmanuel Rubangura, a Tutsi who is now 59, sees no exaggeration. He says he's alive because of Sebushumba's bravery.
Our mayor took a lead in urging people not to kill their neighbors.
Sebushumba praised Giti's townspeople for fighting evil. Embracing humanity, he says, is helping Rwanda heal wounds from 25 years ago. Edward Rema, VOA News, Giti in northern Rwanda.
Authorities in Somaliland, an autonomous region of Somalia, are stepping up their effort to curb the illegal trafficking of cheetah cubs, which are sought as exotic pets in the Persian Gulf countries. Activists warn that cheetahs are in danger in the Horn of Africa. VOA's Kevin Enox narrates this report by Qatar Akule.
Cheetah cubs are being smuggled out of the Horn of Africa as playthings for the super-rich, and Somalia's breakaway northern territory of Somaliland is the main transit route. Somaliland has vowed to stop it. In early October, its military rescued a dozen cubs, with help from the Cheetah Conservation Fund, a research institute. But the cubs were in terrible shape. 3 died before reaching the fund's shelter in Hargeisa, the capital.
They brought us 9 cheetah cubs. Were very emaciated and very, very dehydrated, very bad condition.
Only 3 survived. They're responding to treatment.
We feed them properly, and we give them IV, and we rehydrate them. And we have so many helps from outside, especially from CCF. They are the one who's funding us and who do everything for us, plus all those other veterinaries around the world from South Africa and from London. And everybody is with us, helping us.
The 3 cubs are among 41 cheetahs, including adults, at the shelter. They're fed milk until they gradually shift to a diet of raw meat and protein powder. The Conservation Fund says it costs roughly $10,000 a month to run the shelter.
We are caring a lot for cheetahs here in Somaliland, so they came with very little cubs. It's a bit difficult. They're very, very small, and they need a lot of care.
The Conservation Fund estimates that some 7,000 cheetahs live in the wild in East Africa, and that at least 300 a year are smuggled to wealthy Gulf households, even though private ownership is banned in countries such as Saudi Arabia. The fund says cheetah populations in Ethiopia, Somalia, and northern Kenya are vulnerable. Somaliland says it is safeguarding them.
We have been trying lately to protect the wildlife, especially the cheetahs, many of which are being smuggled.
Somaliland's environment minister added that authorities are doing all they can to combat the trafficking, but asks everyone to cooperate.
I call on the public, especially those living in the coastal areas where cheetahs are smuggled, to be vigilant.
Last year, Somaliland had the region's first wildlife trafficking convictions when 2 cheetah smugglers each were sentenced to 3 years in jail. But observers warn that poverty, poor border control, and demand from the Gulf states will lead others to engage in this lucrative trade. For Qatar Akule, this is Kevin Enox reporting for VOA News.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, Cameroon sports stars battle anti-gay laws. We'll be right back.
We're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa, around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower, and change the rules. It's time for Our Voices with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick,
and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior,
and Orion Itangi Shaka.
It's time for Our Voices.
am Sheikh Asali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. This little robot acts as the eyes of a young girl. Orihime is a small avatar-style robot created by Japanese company Ori Laboratory. By using a smartphone or a tablet, this little girl can access Orihime from anywhere in the world. It allows her to see through the robot's eyes and interact with those around it through both gestures and voice communication. The avatar also allows users to take a more active role by being able to make gestures and speak with those around them, letting students participate in class, for example. Next up, a luxury nail salon in Beverly Hills has just introduced an immersive treatment that transports customers to scenic destinations from the comfort of their seat. A virtual reality headset and the appropriate products take customers on a virtual adventure while getting a manicure and pedicure. To transport to this alternate reality, the cost is $55 for a manicure and $60 for a pedicure. And finally, the music industry's biggest stars were out in force at the 47th American Music Awards. And if Sunday night's red carpet was anything to go by, they came to have fun. It was not a night for demure evening wear at the Los Angeles Microsoft Theater, with stars indulging in loud patterns and eye-popping hues. Among the most talked-about singers on the red carpet was Billie Eilish, who arrived dressed almost entirely in Burberry check. And that's what's trending today.
A U.S. federal judge is expected to issue a ruling Monday in a lawsuit filed by the House Judiciary Committee seeking to compel former White House counsel Don McGahn to testify in the impeachment probe of President Donald Trump. The committee originally sought McGahn's testimony in connection with the investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller into Russia's interference in the 2016 election and allegations that Trump, as president, obstructed justice by working to shut down the inquiry. The committee argued in a court filing last week that it is now even more urgent that it hear from McGahn in light of the public hearings held this month by the House Intelligence Committee into allegations Trump illegally pressured Ukraine to investigate a Democratic rival. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia says she will issue her ruling by the end of business on Monday. McGahn is among a number of Trump administration officials who have ignored congressional subpoenas as the White House argues the officials were immune from being compelled to give such testimony. Now, the U.S. House of Representatives is set to continue preparing its report this week in the impeachment inquiry of President Trump. Meanwhile, another Democrat joined the field of candidates running to be commander-in-chief. VOA's Arash Arbasadi has the latest.
If you would please rise and raise your right hand, I will begin by swearing you in.
After a second week of televised hearings in the impeachment inquiry of President Trump, Democrats in Washington say they have proof of misconduct.
The president has used his office for his own personal gain, and in doing so, undermined the national security of the United States.
I will begin by swearing you in.
Several key witnesses have so far refused or been ordered by the Trump White House not to testify. President Trump dismissed the merits of the investigation.
I think we had a tremendous week with the hoax, you know, the great hoax. They call it the impeachment hoax, and that's really worked out incredibly well, and we have tremendous support.
Sunday, Democratic Senator and presidential hopeful Amy Klobuchar said the evidence mandates a trial in the Senate.
This is the global version of Watergate, where a president is trying to get dirt on a political opponent from a world leader. That is basically what happened here. And so that's the case that we'll be making.
Also Sunday, former New York City mayor and billionaire Michael Bloomberg announced his candidacy for president of the United States.
Mike Bloomberg for president, jobs creator, leader, problem solver. It's going to take all three to build back a country.
Bloomberg's campaign already spent $38 million this week, but Klobuchar says voters want someone other than billionaires.
They're not necessarily looking for the loudest voice in the room. They've got that in the White House. They're not necessarily looking for the richest person. They got a guy who's constantly talking about how much money he has. They're looking for someone different.
But when he witnessed the terrible toll of gun violence,
Bloomberg is one of more than a dozen candidates running for the Democratic nomination. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
It's time for a Monday Sports Report, and joining us now is Sandy Shomari. Hello, Sandy. What's the latest in the world of sports?
Hello, Esther. A lot is happening in the world of sports. And over the weekend, Dutch players protested against racism as the two top teams met on Saturday. Ajax and visitors Heracles Almelo stopped for 60 seconds. The league kicked off, but both sets of players then remained stationary and applauded, with match officials and supporters joining in. Clubs across the country's top two divisions agreed to the measure after Excelsior player Ahmad Mendes Moreira was subjected to racist abuse by Dan Bosch supporters during last Sunday's Dutch second flight match, which is the second highest tier of football in the Netherlands. Thousands of Flamengo fans filled central Rio de Janeiro in Brazil on Sunday to celebrate the team's win over River Plate in the Copa Libertadores final. Club de Regatas do Flamengo, also known as Flamengo, were crowned champions of South American League for the second time after winning for the first in 1981. Flying in Peru, the team landed Rio de Janeiro International Airport before heading off for a victory parade to the center of the city. Gabriel Barbosa was Flamengo's hero in Saturday's final in Lima, cancelling out Rafael Borges' opening goal in the 89th minute and scoring the winner in stoppage time before getting sent off for 2 yellow cards in quick succession. In London, new Tottenham Hotspur head coach Jose Mourinho led training on Sunday, a day before the UEFA Champions League Group B encounter at home to Olympiacos. Looking relaxed and at ease among his new players, Mourinho walked between his first team, reserves, and goalkeeping practice sessions and jokingly imitated Harry Kane's stretching routine. In his first game in charge on Saturday, Mourinho guided Tottenham to a 3-2 victory at West Ham United in the English Premier League, their first away win in the league since January. A win over Olympiacos will secure Tottenham's place in Champions League knockout stage. And in a country where homosexuality is illegal, some Cameroonian sports stars are fighting against the openly homophobic views among sports officials. Serena Chowdhury has more.
Thierry Asambo was ousted from Cameroon's national squad in a scandal over homosexuality. In a country where homosexual acts are illegal, the 38-year-old has little hope of reviving his career, although he still runs every day despite being haunted by the incident. The hurdling champion said he'd been training for the 2014 Commonwealth Games when a senior sports official told journalists and fellow athletes he was gay.
I saw that day all the people who usually looked at me in the stadium with admiration, with respect. They now looked at me with contempt. I was a laughingstock. I was despised. I was booed. People would form small gangs to talk about me. People would look at me. It was really traumatizing. And then, a little while later, the news reached my family, and it was a shock for them. They couldn't take it.
Asamba's family kicked him out after the media reports, and he was suspended from the national squad. Unemployed, shunned by relatives, and ridiculed by his peers, the one-time star said he tried to take his own life more than once. He now works in a hotel. Same-sex relationships are taboo across much of Africa, which is some of the world's most prohibitive laws against homosexuality. Cameroon's penal code punishes same-sex relations with up to 5 years in jail. The Cameroonian Athletics Federation did not respond to requests by the Thomson Reuters Foundation for comment about Asamba, and the International Association of Athletics Federations said it had not received any evidence of a suspension, but would investigate if it did. He's not the only top athlete to have suffered in Cameroon. One female footballer who did not want to be identified said she was made to leave her soccer club after rumours surfaced that she was in a same-sex relationship. Beshem Peter Tani, who coaches the Cameroonian women's football team, summed up the official attitude to homosexuality.
Lesbianism or homosexualism in Cameroon is not legalized, as it is the case in America. So America is an open society. Cameroon is more Christian, and Christians don't accept that. So a girl who is playing football in Cameroon is not supposed to be a lesbian. He's supposed to play as a normal creature of God.
Thank you, Serena Chowdhury of Reuters, with that report. And that wraps our sports for today. And back to you, Esther.
Hey, Sandy, talk to us a little bit about the new coach for the English
Tottenham Hotspurs. Yes. It's a big thing for Tottenham, Esther. They've been struggling a little bit with the old coach, and they wanted to see some changes in the team. And after getting a win with this first new coach away from home, this is good news for Tottenham. And right now, they're looking forward for Olympiacos, which means if they win, they're already in the knockout stage for the UEFA Championship coming up, which is a big thing in Europe League right now.
Olympiacos, you speak Spanish. That's good. Espanol. Sí. All right, Sandy, thank you so much. Be sure to join Sandy Shomari again next Monday for another exciting sports report right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com from all of us here in Washington. Have a good evening.